Welcome to The Secret Place with Bennett. Devotions for hungry hearts and searching souls. Hey! You want to talk about Merton today? I've got this book that I'm working through, The Intimate Merton, his life from his journals. It's really good. I'm going through it very slowly. I have too many books that are kind of on my nightstand that I'm reading concurrently, so I'm reading this one very slowly. And it's cool because, we have been talking about journaling, and this is Merton's journal, day by day. It's amazing. It's amazing stuff here. And there's one that I wanted to read to you because it's right along, where is it? It's 229. It's right along the same lines that we've been talking about, involving the self and the true you. I had a paper in it. I do that all the time. Okay, so this is from his days in 1964, a few years before he died, where he had started. He was in the Hermitage, so he was in the monastery, and they gave him a little hermitage in the woods to have some solitude, to have some solitary time. And his journal reflects how he struggled with that, and how much more he learned about who he was and who God was, and what just his own growth. Even he was in his 50s at this point, but still just growing so much from that hermitage. And he says this, in the hermitage one must pray or go to seed. The pretense of prayer will not suffice. Just sitting will not suffice. It has to be real. Yet what can one do? Solitude puts you with your back to the wall or your face to it. This is good. One prays to pray. And then he says, the quality of one's nights, he's talking about, there's like a whole 2 paragraphs there. He's talking about how sometimes he has problems sleeping, or some people have problems sleeping. And then he goes into this. He says, the quality of one's nights depends on the sanity of the day. I bring there the sins of the day into the light and darkness of truth to be adored without disguise. Then I want to fly back to the disguises. Whoever said that the solitary life is one of pretense and deception, as if pretense were easy in solitude? It is easy in the community, for one can have the support of a common illusion or a common agreement that informs that take the place of truth. One can pretend in the solitude of an afternoon walk, but the night destroys all pretenses. One is reduced to nothing and compelled to begin laboriously the long return to truth. What is Merton talking about there? He's talking about his own experience in solitude. So this wonderful monk who wrote so much is talking about the connection between solitude and the self, and then really finding, I don't want to say finding himself, but coming to the stark nakedness or rawness of who he was. Not too many people like solitude. Even if you love solitude, it takes a while. It has to be measured, because too much solitude can put you into isolation. But so he was talking about how in the monastery, or when you're with other people, and it's just like a monk's life, it's one thing to walk in stillness and quietness. There's still a lot of activity. But when you're in a little hermitage and you're in a little shack or cabin in the woods, and you're all by yourself for days at a time, it feels in the middle of the night when you wake up during that, what is that called, the wolf hour, the hour of the wolf, historically between 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning and 5, where you can't get back to sleep, and you feel tortured because every little ghost or demon or memory from the past or problem in the future kind of comes upon you, and you can't get any rest. Well, he talks about the hermitage, the solitude in that little cabin like that. There's no one there. And it's one thing to take 15 minutes or an hour, but what about 24 hours and 48 hours and 72 hours? There's no pretense with that. There's no pretense. It's I don't recommend it either. If you're not used to taking some contemplative time, 10, 15 minutes, a half hour of quiet regularly, where you're in a place of quiet rest and peace with God and communing there. I don't recommend going for days at a time. I've never gone days at a time, because I'm not a monk, I'm not a hermit, far from it. But the fact that he was and could bring that information to us, that even he struggled in spite of the deep, deep wisdom that he had and the understanding about God, about himself, about relationships, about the world, about life in general. He had so much wisdom. But then getting to that hermitage, it went to a deeper level because he didn't have others during those times to discuss it with, and he was alone with himself. And that's the point I wanted to get to in today's Secret Place video, to be alone with oneself. We need some time alone with ourselves, whether we're an introvert or an extrovert. We need some time. But the extroverts among us tend to mask that need and pretend that we don't. The introverts among us very often tend to mask that time by taking time away from people, but not really in solitude, in busyness by themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter, introvert or extrovert. I'm not going there today. I'm talking about understanding that there is a solitary self. There is a you. There is a me that no one else knows but God. No matter how much you share and you pour out and you're open with God or with others, there's still depth underneath there. There's a lot that we carry in our truest self that we don't even understand about ourselves. And that is important to reckon with. And, if you have, it can be for any reason. It doesn't have to be for, addictions or major problems in our lives that we go to a solitary retreat, or we start to practice the discipline of solitude, of stillness, of silence. But if you feel at all inclined, like that might do me some good. I need to get off this productivity treadmill and get some quiet time regularly. There's retreats out there. There's weekends. There's week-long retreats. And it's so different than like going for like therapy, which is also helpful for some people, for many people. What I'm realizing lately, and one of the things I plan to talk about at the University of Toronto when I go, is my paper is called Silence as Solution. And it deals with interiority and that interior landscape, that you that I'm talking about, that you that's in there, that is part of your interior, that everything else in life, interactions, work, falls upon. It's like the landscape or the groundwork for everything else. And I noticed that, I wonder why we have so many of these quote unquote new practices like mindfulness. Mindfulness is even in the curricula for many public schools now. Practices mindfulness and yoga classes, and the Enneagram is really big. All of these helps, these tools to help us get in touch with that interior self. When for ancient history of Christianity, the contemplative prayer does that. But we have somehow, as Christians, the Christian church in general has relegated that to monks, not even priests, but to the monasteries. But, no, we don't have to abide by that. We can make use of the beautiful practice, the spiritual practice of contemplative prayer in very small, I won't say easy, but small, regular ways every day, starting with 5 minutes. If you have to start with 2 minutes, coming to a place where you quiet your soul. Don't have to give it off to the public schools and the secular sages to teach you mindfulness. The Lord can teach you. You can start right now by just saying, tomorrow morning, instead of hopping out of bed, as I wake up, I'm going to take 2 minutes to quiet myself. 2 minutes to say hello to the world, hello to God. Thank you, Lord, for my breath. Thank you that I'm waking up in this world. And then take some time to just dwell on the goodness of God. Dwell on the goodness of God. 2 minutes, and then get up and start your day. Start with 2 minutes, and you'll see what starts to happen and transform in your life. More focus comes in. It becomes a spiritual practice that helps you to flourish, helps you to get more in touch with your interior. It helps us all to just get healthier, to take care of our soul. Yeah, this past month I've been talking about soul care quite a bit, and it's really been freeing because in my younger years I was under the impression, and I was taught, my parents didn't teach me this, but I was taught just not to pay attention to that stuff. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but I was taught that like that's almost self-indulgent, soul care, and it's not. It's not. And I did practice a lot of soul care without calling it soul care. I did practice, and I have continued to practice journaling and contemplative prayer. But it took me a long time to even get to that point for contemplative prayer, probably until the 1990s, early 1990s, where I started realizing that this was a practice that was non-discursive, that was helpful to enrich and free me from a lot of the things that bound me up. So I'm still in that process. If you want to talk about it, leave a comment, contact me. Love to hear from you. In the meantime, have a wonderful, wonderful month. Have a great week. Have an extraordinary day. Okay? Full of joy, reflection, peace.
Breathe, listen, and receive. Take a moment to soak it all in. Until next time.